Welcome to Command Control Power, the longest-running Apple consulting podcast. This is Joe, your host and co-founder. For over 10 years, we've produced weekly episodes featuring epic tales of tech support and troubleshooting, discussions about managing our clients and businesses, and interviews with colleagues and vendors. Our weekly podcast blends thought-provoking discussions on hot tech topics with solutions and anecdotes from the field. Plus, rediscover hidden gems here on the public feed, curated from our expansive archive of over 500 classic episodes. For our pro listeners, we offer Patreon-exclusive shows. This private podcast feed is tailor-made for IT professionals looking for advice and guidance on the more challenging aspects of running your practice, working with your clients and employees, and managing your fleets of devices. For a modest monthly contribution, you'll unlock a world of deeper Apple expertise, meaningful connections, and a shared passion for Apple technology. Simply visit commandcontrolpower.com and click support. You can preview the latest episodes and special content there, and you can instantly subscribe to the weekly patron-only episodes right in your favorite podcast app. Level up your consulting journey with the latest episodes, the most candid conversations, bonus features, and more. Join us on Patreon. And now on to the show. Welcome back to another episode of Command Control Power. It's great to see you both with your full quality video. I think we all have pretty full quality now. And thanks, Jerry, for making the investment in the arm. Did you go with Sam's recommendation on the iPhone mount for your phone?
No, I just did a little cheap $16 thing that clips onto my screen.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah.
Onto my cheap computer, onto my cheap screen.
Now that we're recording in HD, I feel like I should use the touch up my appearance option here because it's just too much.
I'm going commando. This is what you get. You get all the good, the bad, and the ugly with me.
Yeah.
Nice. Imagine being like an actual broadcaster and going 4K on like an interview in 4K. Here we are taking up a third of a 1080p or whatever, and we're criticizing our own appearances because those people are full screen 4K.
Yeah.
Every blemish it shows. It's just
that's caked on makeup, man, for sure.
I know. It's true. It's true. Exactly. Yeah, so Sam and I just got to see each other in person. Speaking of 4K, maybe more like 5K high def, and that was super fun. We were at Aces. We missed you, Jerry. We were thinking about you. We're trying to send you reports from the field. I think you got some reports of all the free rounds of drinks that we were treated to by some of our listeners and new friends. It was really fun, and I feel like you had a lot of FOMO. Is that fair to say? Fear of missing out?
I did. I enjoyed some of the pictures that you guys were kind enough to send. And when you did a Command Control Power group picture, I was really touched that Adam Engst had a picture of me on his iPhone that he held up. That was a nice touch. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I felt
with
honored.
Like seconds to spare. He brought it up on screen. I was like, perfect. That's the one.
So whose idea was that to do? That was pretty smart.
I think we said, we'll have to Photoshop Jerry in, and I forget if he thought of it or I thought of, let's bring it up on an iPad or phone. Let's bring you like to the live, the quote unquote live clever. Photoshop job. Yeah. Well, speaking of Adam, I want to just acknowledge some of the awesome people that we saw. So yeah, Adam Engst was there. He gave a great AI presentation. You hear everything is AI these days. It's the buzzword of the minute, but his talk was really helpful. It was like an interesting kind of overview of how you can utilize AI in your business and where it's good to use and where other areas where like shouldn't really rely on it. It always impresses me how cutting edge he keeps it after being in this business as pretty much longer than anybody, I imagine. He just still keeps it so fresh. So yeah, Sam, what did you think of Adam's talk up there?
It was really cool to see the use cases, to see where it can be put to actual good use for certain situations and times when people maybe use it inappropriately. And I thought it was very well done. If you want more, you got to check out the ACES recordings. We are recording this. You'll see this a few weeks after we attended ACES, but I think the videos should be out by then. But what do you have for us, Gary?
Briefly, what was Adam's take on using AI for email correspondence with clients? Was he bullish on that?
Yeah, I know you're big on that. He did talk a bit about it in terms of client communications. I forget if we brought it up after the fact, but I was talking about just feeling the need to touch that up, though. I always feel like I can see AI for what it is. If you give it a little bit of a human element, it helps. And I think Adam did talk about that a little bit as well.
I knew this was going to happen. Yeah. Jerry opted out of ACES, and now he wants the content. He still wants the free content. Yeah.
So not to get your presentation here a little too off the rails, but I use AI every day, and it's so much more personal to my clients than I am. So just today, I got an email from a elderly client. She said that she had trouble because she wanted to send me an email and her emails are confused. She's confused with the emails. And you know how, of course, you get suggestions for email in your contacts app, and that confused her. And I'm like, let's just schedule something. So I just dropped into AI and I said, please respond back to this client. We'd be happy to work with her. And I just put the contents of the email, so it specifically speaks to whatever she's talking about. And I might have to massage a word or two, but it's beautiful. And I just copy it and I tweak it for a moment, and it's off, and I didn't have to deal with any of that.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I think that's where Adam was leaning towards in that as well. And even one thing that surprised me is he was talking about also like simple legal documents, because a lot of those are cookie cutter. You could use AI for that purpose too. But we get into the bad aspects of things too, which is talking about technical content, for instance, which can be very wrong depending on where you're scraping data from.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So things like that, and where you get more personal, or where AI will falter. And yeah, credits to Adam. That was really well done.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of the Adams, there was Adam Rice, also longtime friend of the show and guest on the show. And I think he was a 10-time ACES attendee as well. So obviously ACES is doing something right. They're attracting some people for all 10. That's not easy year after year. It's also, I found out it was his 25th wedding anniversary. This came up at some point, and I forget that I had 20 years in my head. 25 is like just even more mind-blowing, because I would believe you if he had said I'm 25 years old. I would have probably believed that. So maybe 35, but he's been married for 25. I'm just that's very impressive, and he's made it to ACES every year, like apparently right around his anniversary. So good on him for that. Adam Burge, also from Kelso, a former guest on the show as well. I'm probably forgetting people along the way. There's probably 2 more Adams in there that I spoke with, but those are the 3 that I had the most interaction with this time around. Of course, Brian Best, another, I think, I don't know if he's a 10-timer, but he's spoken it basically almost every ACES.
10-timer as well, yeah.
It's always a great presentation.
Yeah, he's a good presenter. He was cracking me up, like where he was at one point, he was going through his different ACES years. 2020, that sucked. I don't even remember what happened there.
That's right.
It was just cracking me up the way he was delivering. It was really well done.
Totally. Yeah, it was really good. And I think you mentioned Sam Michael Thompson. Also, one of the 3 or 4 reasons I was there was Michael making the trek all the way from Australia. And not to mention that, but also building fences after ACES. So just doing volunteer work while he's here. It's always great to connect with, and heroic level of attendance. Exactly. And it was great. I always have like actionable tips. I think, Sam, you were mentioning offline some of the stuff he said, and it amazes me how he could just cut through a lot of the chatter and just have a very quick idea about what to do to improve your business or whatever you're working on.
Yeah,
that was great.
It's good to see him, and a lot of the others that were out there. But those hallway tracks, as they call them, are the best parts. The actionable items, half of them were from those conversations, and just
totally,
things that I want to do now because I've talked with others. I'm like, man, I got to kick this into gear. And so I'm doing a couple of things we can talk about another time, but I'm changing my ticketing system. I'm doing a couple of things that have been supposed to be happening for a while now, and this has now kicked me in the butt.
Nice. Yeah, I think the next person on my list, these are just in the order where I saw them or remembered hanging out with them. Tim Pearson, of course, a longtime friend of the show. We always talk about the Tim Pearson method of structuring your plans in the Tim Pearson episode. And I think you featured it in your presentation, right, Sam? Was like the kind of modern version of your MSP plan was the Tim Pearson plan. Tim, speaking of actionable advice, he gave me something on the opening, like it was pre-ACES. It was like the opening welcome party. I was realizing, I didn't know that. And I'm going to start using that. So yeah, it just amazes me. Jason Detbarn was there. Of course he was. It was just great to see him and shake his hand in person again and talk about non-technical stuff too. It's just nice to just connect with people in person. Kevin Ginger, Dave Provine, Matt Westoff. Can one of you guys correct me on the pronunciation, please?
I think you're good there.
I believe it's Wostoff.
Thank you. Sarah Gepp, met a new person.
Sarah Gepp. Yeah, I was surprised to see her in the picture. Yeah, I thought she had moved on from consulting. It was very nice to see her.
She's moved into some other areas, like in addition to consulting, which is really interesting too. I just love hearing these stories when people really branch out. I did pretty much nothing but tech for the first 10 years of my business. Like I had no bandwidth for anything else. So it always amazes me when people find the time for that and find ways of integrating different fields too, or like you learn from one field something you can use in another field. Lucas Acosta, Steve Sorbo, Mike Kingsley, great to connect with again. Of course, Matthew Waples, as we call him, Waples, now working with Adigy. So it's always interesting also to see that kind of overlap where people have their own consultancy and they're a partner of a larger company. Alan Hancock, of course, a huge longtime supporter of the show. Interesting to see Alan too and hear about his transition to now not working as an independent consultant anymore, working in-house, and he's still at ACES learning things.
And it was his 50th birthday.
Oh, that's right. So that was his 50th. I didn't realize that. As I was rushing to leave to make my flight, people were singing to Alan and like telling me to just grab something from the piñata, like just reach in and grab candy on my way out. So that was my experience of Alan's 50th. Happy birthday, Alan. Melanie Curtis was there. She gave a talk at the last ACES we were all at, I think. She was like telling this amazing story about skydiving that was really interesting and relating it to just helping people with performance, their own ability to use techniques to do maybe bigger things than you otherwise could achieve. Will O'Neill, got to talk to Will a little bit more like at that closing party. And by the way, that closing party was hosted by Tim Pearson of Creative Techs. Like I didn't realize that going into it, but he put that whole thing on and it was a great integration from this jam-packed 2 days of content to be able to just kind of chat and eat and hang out outside on a roof. It was just, that was a really nice thing that Tim did. So thanks Tim for doing that. Sure. Yeah. And then some new people too, but Sam, maybe you want to mention some of the people you got to connect with.
You're rolling down the list, my friend.
I can keep going.
I got to sit next to Sarah on day 2 because we connected a little bit on, I think the first day when we arrived, we all went out for coffee and stuff. And that was great. As I've said a million times, those are the parts I look forward to the most. Just chatting with people, hanging out, casual, and you just either learn something personally about them, which is also great, or you just pick up something about them and their business. Little nuggets of information that are so good. Yeah, it was great to see her. We talked a little bit about marketing too. And the presenters were all great. You mentioned Melanie. She's also just really good at delivery and has a good way about her. So it was awesome to see all these people, man. And never mind the drinks, just hanging out, talking, learning, and seeing some amazing faces that you haven't shook hands with or hugged in a while.
Yeah.
You guys ran into,
as I said before, I'm a hugger. So
that's right.
You ran into Josh Allman, you were telling me?
Yeah. Of course, I knew his name from just seeing him on Slack and all, but like we had never really connected. We hung out a lot, and he I think bought us a couple rounds of drinks. I was really so grateful for the support we both felt from our listeners. Sam, like we just
and Ben Morales also got us a drink too. And we talked. Besides that, we talked a little bit just about his business. Amazing story on his business side. He went from an entry-level tech to owner of the business in 5 years. It was like insanely amazing.
Really amazing.
The piece is even just you and I getting to see each other. Just hey, what's going on in person?
I know. Totally. It's great. It's as much as I have gone back east for various things over the last year or so, it's hard to find the time sometimes. So it's finding the time to actually go to a conference where everyone from the industry is going to be there. It's also an opportunity for us to hang out as friends. So it was really fun to do that. The in-person stuff is just, there's no replacement for it. It's such a higher, as I always put it, like a higher bandwidth connection. It's a way of just, you said, maybe you learn a couple tidbits of information, whether it's business related or personal, but you just wouldn't otherwise really either hear that or integrate that and remember that it was related to this person. It's just that happens in person a lot easier than it happens online, you know?
And you know, speaking on the personal level, I wish you would have waited for me at the airport so we could have shared an Uber, but you took off without me. I was only 20 minutes behind and Joe's, nope, I'm out of here. Anyway.
I didn't realize we had planned that. I don't think we had, but it wasn't totally clear that you were returning your car anyway, that you were going to the airport. So yeah, that was a missed,
So you both spent a couple days. Of course, you were in Salt Lake City. Have you rethought the whole polygamy thing? Or is that sounding better to you guys? Or
Didn't discover anything new there, Jerry.
Yeah,
you guys didn't talk to Jen and Ashley and maybe suggest new ideas.
Has not happened. No.
Is that why Justin held the conference in Salt Lake City though? Do you think? Was that like part of the? I don't know. I missed that session. I missed that hallway session or wherever that session took place. I was not there. But no, speaking of the hallway sessions though, like Sam said, the content, I love the casual interactions like that because you just bump into somebody there. Maybe they're wearing our shirt and I'm just like, hey, nice shirt. And then you start chatting. And then also, oh, you're that guy. Now I recognize you. I've seen your name online and stuff. And oftentimes in the past, I felt like the time for that stuff was so limited. It's like 15 minutes between sessions or something like that. But the way it was programmed this time, I felt was really conducive to those interactions. There was a lot of space. We were all in a space right outside where the actual conference talks were. And the lunches were extra long. There was plenty of time to get something to eat, have a bite to eat, walk around, connect with people. It was just really well, I think, planned, both for the lunches and the breaks as well. There was some outdoor space right there. It was great. And so you could connect with people over lunch. You could go outside and just have a chat, get some sun. It was really well done. A few more names, like you mentioned, Sam Benjamin Morales, newest VIP supporter. He had a great presentation. Like you said, his story is really excellent. Hearing some of that from him personally. He also talked about some business things that you could take away, which again, you needed to be there, Jerry. Sorry about that. But yeah, his talk was fantastic and he had a lot of reading material to recommend as well. So Benjamin was on our radar as someone in the business and a supporter of ours, but yeah, we hadn't connected in person. Some other people I hadn't ever connected with in person, as far as I know, Noam Birnbaum, got to meet him. He's based, I think, in SF, has over 20 people on his company's team. Nyla Hossein, I hadn't ever interacted with. She's relatively new to the business, but she was great to talk to and learn a little bit about how she works. She does Windows and Mac like you, Sam. She supports a lot of lawyers like you've complained about, Jerry, over the years having to support. And so, yeah, just these different business models are always interesting to talk about and hear how people got into the business and what they do.
Recognized in the group picture, Howard Mullenix was there, Steve Sorbo, right? They were both
exactly.
Yeah. Talking to Steve for a while. Art Lamas was there too. He's listening to the show. He was right in the center. I remember when I was presenting, I was like, there he is.
Yep.
It was good.
Yeah.
When you presented, Sam, of course, presented a segment at the ACES conference on the second day, right? Sam, towards the end of the day. You think everybody was like licking their chops to just, oh boy, let's see.
I don't know. I was just waiting to see all the suitcases lined up and people leaving early for the airport, but thankfully that wasn't the case.
Yeah, no, I don't think you had anybody shuffling in their seats too much. I think they were really riveted by some of the content you were sharing, the numbers that you were giving. I think you opened up the kimono to the ACES attendees to see how the mistakes you've made, as you put it, and maybe you'll talk more about it, and some of the numbers, like in pricing of your plans and stuff. I thought that was really... Will O'Neill did give you a hard time, though, but I think you had planned for that, right?
Yeah, it was funny. Will O'Neill sat in the front row to stage left, I guess you would say. And he asked me a couple of tough questions about my numbers. I had it in my notes. Watch out for Will O'Neill and the tough questions. Yeah. He started laughing. He was like, no way you had that in your notes. I'm like, I did.
It's just to clarify, what you've noted as profit is not actually profit, right?
Yeah, because it was numbers for my cost, not for my labor in a chart that I had put out there. So he wanted to point out, and he did. And it was funny.
You should have said, I'm going to turn this over to my trusted advisor, Tim Pearson. Yeah. Tim, please take care of Will. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that was just fair feedback you were giving.
Yeah,
just
for sure.
A rough overview, but yeah, not including labor. Let's see. Did I mention Stephen Seal? I don't think we had ever connected, but we got some time with him. Dan Monhay. I had Anush Dorville, right? Sam, I don't think I had ever spoken with him until the very end at that party, just chatting real briefly, but another impressive guy, impressive organization. I met very briefly Fred, I'm going to mispronounce Bourrier, something like that. Sorry, Fred. Nice to connect with you. Ivan Drucker. Ivan, you knew for a long time, Sam, right? And I think I've met Ivan like in the old days, in the New York days. Maybe, do you know Ivan, Jerry? He's Ivan expert,
I don't.
Sam?
Yeah.
That's his company. Yeah.
He's based out of New York City. He does a lot of high-end residential, I think. And not just in New York City, I don't believe anymore, obviously, with things changing. But yeah, he hung out for a while too. It was good to connect with him.
Definitely. I think that at that same event, was it John Lee was there as well? He was telling me a little bit about his business. I think the next day, he's, I think, grown to, I believe, 5 people in about 5 years
Nice.
of his operation. So that's always impressive. Wayne Nelson, I met for the first time. He had actually some great ideas. And Jerry, this is me justifying the Vision Pro via Wayne Nelson's advice here. So Wayne was talking about how he uses the Vision Pro quite a bit for support using Splashtop, the iPad version of Splashtop. Got a bunch of windows over here, and just you're supporting this person, this progress bar, and this person. And so he's using the Vision Pro as like a support tool. And I thought, man, you're speaking my language. This is just the justification I needed. But actually, in all seriousness, I think it would be great to just hear from him on the show about how he's using this technically. Maybe as we go from like version 1 to version 2, we might see some improvements there. Maybe that would be a good time to chat about it. But yeah, I think he was wearing our shirt. And so that's how we got to talking. And I was like, oh, great, Wayne Nelson. We'd never met. A couple more names, Rocco Russo. I don't think I ever met.
Yeah, I know. Rocco's good. Yeah. It was good to see him. I'd seen him maybe the last time was at one of the other Aces, I think, perhaps. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It had been a while. I was thinking about it. Like it's been for me, had it been 5? I think it had been 6 years since I had been to any in-person conference. For a lot of us, probably like 5 years, 4 or 5 years. Yeah, it was just great to see everybody again. But yeah, that's my incomplete list. Sorry for all the people I'm sure I missed, but it was me racking my brain, like thinking about all those interactions and trying to make note of each person. And I'm sure there's 6 people I'll think of as soon as we hang up the call. But it was awesome to see everybody. And thanks everybody for your support out there as well. It was really cool to see the number of Command Control Power shirts and stickers on water bottles and things like that. Really,
if your name wasn't mentioned, reach out to us and we'll make sure we put you on the next show. I'm sure we'll have something to share.
Yeah. Exactly. And you can blame Joe for that.
Blame letters go to Joe.
Yeah, that's fair. I named 40 people. Sam named 1. That seems there's shared burden there.
I didn't want the burden on me. So
Sam, tell us more about your talk, because you were like a little concerned in going into it. You were telling me, I don't know how this is going to go over. I was encouraging you because you shared it with me in advance. And it was a great kind of walk in your shoes over the years, stuff we've talked about on the show, but reminding listeners how your journey has been. So yeah, would you want to say anything more about your talk? What do you wish you had said?
Did you notice any flop sweat when he was up there at all, Joe?
Sam's a professional. There's no. I thought you could have gone a little harder against Justin though, because you had a stand-up routine plan about Justin, and I thought it was going to be great. But yeah.
Well, I was joking and then I was joking with Justin afterwards too, because I was just like, I was going to turn this into a Justin Esgar roast.
That's right.
And it seemed to get some good feedback in the crowd.
That's right. Yeah. No, the funny thing was, like, we were talking about this over dinner. We had two little things you sprinkle in to kind of roast the person, or whatever. And then I think it Tim Pearson sat down at the table, and you and I were like, you said to Tim, I was just planning my roast to Justin. And Tim's like, how can I help?
Yeah. He's like, oh, how can I help? And it's like, all excited.
I think that was the one you used, which was great. Yeah. That was a perfect way to just do a roast, but not actually roast the guy, which is great.
Yeah. No, because I appreciate everything Justin did too. It's a huge undertaking. Like, it's insane. Yeah. I can joke with him and roast him, and he's a good guy and he's in good spirits about it. But holy crap, doing this, that's a lot to put that thing together and organize people and personalities and order of events and it's crazy. But
I want to hear about your presentation, Sam, but hearing you guys talk and seeing some of the pictures, my takeaway was the fact that the crowd wasn't voluminous. They weren't like standing room only, gave you a chance to really connect with people, and vice versa. I'm sure people connected with each other in a really special way. And that's what cuts both ways. It would be nice if there were 250 people there, but you guys had the privilege of being able to interact with everybody a little bit, or at least pretty close to that. And so that was nice.
Yeah. And the intimate atmosphere definitely helps. It gives you a chance to, as you said, talk with different people, different groups. There were times when I was sitting down with Andy Espo and a few others, and then you get an opportunity to, at the next break, sit down with another group. And then you're chatting with those people. And Of course, I had to throw in the Andy Esposito joke, Jerry. You weren't there for it, but
I know.
Yeah, this is the first time we mentioned that he was there. So it was good to see him in the picture.
We had a conversation for a long time, because I'll dive into the presentation part real quick, because at one point in my presentation, I had said on one of my bullet points, shield yourself from the financials. But what I meant was shield yourself from billing and have someone perhaps be your buffer for billing. But when I said shield yourself from the financials, Andy and Justin, Andy told me this later. They looked at each other. Wait, what? You don't want to know about your financials? And so Andy raised his hand when I was presenting. He's like, do you mean billing? And I'm like, oh yes, billing. Like that's. And so he and I joked about that forever afterwards at the after hours. After Joe left, I was sitting with him and we were just cracking up. Just F the P&L. Just forget about it.
Nice.
So for the listeners who aren't aware, your topic that you spoke on was what was the official title of your presentation?
Yeah, so it was basically my journey through my MSP plans. So it started out with what I learned initially from, at this point, basically a decade ago, from Alan and Watchman, and he had that online rate plan calculator where you would plug in your numbers of devices you were monitoring and hours that you were working, and it would spit out like a calculation, which was actually great because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. That was a good way to start. And then I just talked about how I matured through each one and some of the pitfalls of each one as well, because every one of them has something that's at fault in some respect. So I went into why this part didn't work for me and how I graduated to another plan, and then what we joke about is the Tim Pearson plan. And even up to that point in time, I am still learning and changing and adjusting and figuring things out. It's never going to end. And there's no perfect solution. You figure things that like, I didn't price this high enough, or I made a mistake with this calculation, and you're constantly going through it. Even the day before at the dinner, and it was actually great. We had a little nice dinner in honor of Charles Edge in between the days, which was Justin had a moment to speak, and that was really nice. And we all reflected on different stories that we had with Charles. That was actually excellent. And I'm glad we had a chance to bring that up for a moment. And during that time, I was talking with Tim about just maybe adjusting a lower plan for some people that didn't want to pay my higher rate. And he's don't do that. He was like very adamant about it. And I talked about that in my presentation as well, because that was another learning point for me, even as I'm doing this. So it never ends, freaking ends. You're always going through it.
Joe's famous for that, giving the residential clients a little bit of a break.
Right. Yeah, I've done that here and there. I'm trying to be stricter about it.
Yeah.
This is what we're worth.
Yeah. It's a constant effort for me to remind myself about that. So this is a good reminder that you're bringing up. It's like sometimes, and that's a great example because you just come out with that sometimes. Like you think, oh, why don't I give somebody a break, or maybe I should have an entry level. And then it takes a colleague sometimes to just shut it down like that and to keep you on track. Yeah. Yeah.
That speaks to a little bit of Lucas Acosta was talking about too, which is if you don't make those hard decisions, if you're not even in charge of those decisions in your company, it makes it easier to you have someone that tells you no, even though it's your business. Let's know this is not right financially for us. Not everyone has the capacity for that, but just as an example, if you do have a team, you could put someone that's more in charge of the financials.
The operations person or the integrator role. In EOS, obviously, that's a specific thing that works on the larger business models, really. Yeah. Go ahead, Jerry.
No, just to dovetail off of that, I thought of you just a couple days ago, Joe. I was invoicing a client for a migration, an email migration, and it went a little bit longer than expected, but it wasn't smooth. It wasn't particularly difficult. It just took a long time. And I was going to dial down the price a little bit, and your voice was going through my head like, no, you're going to give them a break on this. Knock $150 off, and they're not even going to realize it anyway that you've given them this discount. They're just, your number is your number, and sometimes you just have to stick to it. And so you helped me out there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm glad my voice is in your. Yeah, it's because I have to remind myself this still to this day. Don't negotiate against yourself. And as I mentioned on the show, I remind Tim on my team about it because he's putting in his charges. And sometimes I'll look at his charge and I'll say, that seems like it should have been higher, or the charges are there and then he adds the discount like we used to do in a lot of cases. And it's, do we really need to add that discount? What's going to happen if we don't discount this? The thing you're thinking over time is like, maybe there's some attrition in your client base because they keep getting these high invoices and then they don't call you again, or they hesitate to call you. That's like the real long-term consequence, but that rarely happens. And the actual practical consequence is like every once in a while, somebody looks at the invoice and says, that seems high. And like you've pointed out in the past, Jerry, they might say, could you look at the invoice again? And it's just, I'm going to look and see. Actually, I might see, okay, fair. That's a little high. And then you give a little discount. And so let them ask, like, why are we negotiating?
Let them ask
ourselves?
first. Yep. Great advice.
Yeah. That's the whole process of learning that we all have to go through. And I think the buffer, by the way, of billing does help that, if it's at all possible, to just have someone there that's not you. That's, even if you hire someone part-time or consultant or something like that, it's a little easier to not have those uncomfortable conversations. At least it is for me. I'm not good at those sorts of things. And for someone to be an expert in that area, or someone that doesn't feel a little shy about having those conversations, it can make it easier if it's possible.
I'm with Sam. I had that for a while with I had a finance manager. I had somebody who was invoicing clients, following up to get payment, all that kind of stuff. And I always felt the same way. It was a buffer where I don't have to be the one that's sending the email from joe@cymac.com, from my address. And they see that it's an invoice attachment from me, and they're going to reply back to me and be, really, all you did was whatever. And it just feels uncomfortable. But I don't think that had a lot of benefit for me in the long run, or at least over time. What happened was, we used to also send people invoices and then wait, because they're supposed to send us a check. And now I'm like waiting by the mailbox, and then I'm checking the mailbox, and then I'm following up with them and resending the invoice and all that stuff. And with the inefficiency of that, it was helpful to have somebody else do it. But now we just have everything billing on credit cards, and I'm just processing the payment when I send the invoice, and I'm sending the paid invoice. So they can still complain. They can still ask for a discount. Retroactively, I can still do that, whatever. But the fact that I'm sending it through my system also, as opposed to just attaching a PDF to an email and having it come from my normal email. It comes from our system. Sure, it's technically from me, and I might include a little note at the top that my system puts at the top of the email with the attachment at the bottom. But it's enough of a buffer where I would say, find a way just to not, in your case, if you have a person to do that, great. But if people don't have a person to do that, I wouldn't say necessarily hire somebody.
No,
unless they can do a lot more than.
I think Jerry even sends something like from accounting or whatever. Like, do you send invoices from a different email, Jerry? Or does it come from Jerry at MacWorks?
No, that may not be a bad idea. No, most of my invoicing now goes through Square. And if they want to play with credit card, I just take the hit. But I've never had a real problem with that, whether it came from me. I like to know how long it's been since I've sent it out and whether they're just sitting on it, because sometimes they'll call in the interim, and it's important to have that conversation with them if they are slow pay.
Yeah.
Sam, getting back to your presentation, as you were talking, were you noticing like a lot of nod heads and a lot of shared experience out there that?
Oh, I thought you meant like nodding heads, like falling asleep.
No.
I did see some of that.
It's funny. I always tell you guys that I'm a lot funnier when I'm editing the show because I think of all the jokes. And there was a show recently that you were talking about. We were kidding you, Sam, about not shaving, and you were on the train and you were nodding off to sleep. And I said that maybe the person thought you were a hobo, but then you said you got off at Norwalk, and it was my perfect point to say, you mean Snorwalk. But because you said maybe I was snoring, and I missed it. I'm like, damn. I just had to mention that. No, like people nodding and going, yep, I was there, kind of thing. I mean, that always helps.
Yeah, and sometimes people taking a photo of the slides and stuff, which may be a little validation of, this could be useful to that person, and some good questions. So the funny thing is, normally with the presentations, you have like your prezzo, and then you do time for questions at the end. But since I'm so used to teaching and stuff, I like right in the middle of my thing, I'm like, are there any questions? They're like, like a bunch of people are like this. I'm like, oh no. Because then I had to deal with those and manage my time up there. It's just my natural instinct to make sure people are getting it. But I did not expect all the questions in the middle. But it turned out to be good, because I think the audience participation may have been a good thing. Just getting people chatting and asking questions.
Yeah, break it up a little bit. That's great.
Yeah. It was fun. It was fun to get out there and I did give Justin a little crap once again for me being last, but it worked out okay.
Yeah, Jerry, you were talking about the size also. I think all in, it was 60 something, 60 to 80, I forget how, it's a decent turnout for a relatively small field. There's something like 200 something ACN companies, right? And it's not like a crazy number of businesses doing what we do. And so to get on the order of 60 to 80 individuals there for this content, I'm impressed. I wouldn't want it to be much larger because I think, like you were saying, the interactions tend to be higher quality when you recognize someone, when you might have a chance to see the same person a few times. You can have smaller breakout groups and things like that where people naturally just partner up. But there's the concept of the Dunbar number, which is the size of the number of relationships you can naturally maintain, like as a human, social relationships. They call it the Dunbar number. I think it's like 150, something like that. To me, that's always about the size. It either can be a conference of around 100 or under, maybe 125, something like that. And that's like a certain feel. That's like the ACES vibe. If you have more than that, it might as well be 2,000 or something, because you're just not going to have the same level of interaction. It's logistically much more complicated. I know Justin, we were actually talking about it a little bit. I think he would like to have a larger conference, obviously, like at a certain scale, you get the numbers right, and the quality of the people you can bring into the conference is higher. The ticket sales can make up for a little bit more higher quality experience overall. Not that there was any room for improvement there. I thought the experience was great. The speakers were great. Of course, you'd want it to be a little bit bigger if you could, but I don't think you'd want it to be 300 or 500 people. It would just be a whole different vibe. So I was very happy.
It's very much like this show. It's niche programming, and it's hard to expand out when you've got a certain criteria for who you're broadcasting to, whether you're putting on a conference or putting on a podcast. There was a Vision Pro that was given away by Adigy. Who won that?
Do you know? AJ, I think, from
AJ Petrebka. Yeah.
Yep. Nice. Very nice.
And I guess it was funny too, because I guess they're not selling them yet in Canada. And Justin pulls out the Canadian won it. Like, it was funny, but
that makes it, I've listened to another podcast, that makes it difficult to actually get it operable because of the store. You have to interact with the store. Yeah, and so it's going to be a little tricky until it gets sold there.
Yeah, the free Vision Pro might cost him like an international travel trip. You may have to fly back to buy it and activate it just to walk home and go fly home with the free Vision Pro. Roy Migwins in the chat is saying if we could share the rough attendance size again. So it was about 60 to 80 people, I think.
I think total. It was in that 65 to 70 range, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. It was right around there. But definitely a solid number.
Yeah.
And that Little America Hotel was not little. I mean, that place was big.
Oh. My room was awesome. It was wasted on just me. I didn't have a choice. It was just like every room was apparently really great. And
Jerry, we got there, we rolled up to the Little America Hotel, and then right across the street is the Grand America Hotel. I'm like, why didn't we get to stay there? We're at the Little America.
Yeah.
It was nice accommodations though. It was really sweet.
Definitely. It was a great hotel. We walked, I think, I don't know if you did, Sam, I walked with you a couple times, but like to and from the venue, from the hotel, like very easily, to and from the various dinners and things. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, really good. Nice. Good. Let's see. What else? Oh, you know what I wanted to mention also, just because I forgot to mention earlier, Brian Latanzio was there from Apple. I think we've all met Brian at this point at various places over the years. Omar, is it El-Shami? Omar was there. I had never met him, but I've seen him on calls, obviously. He's also at Apple. Oh, Jerry, you okay?
What the heck happened to Jerry?
Jerry just fell out of his chair. I guess you didn't know Apple was going to be there at ACES, Jerry?
My head keeps on getting chopped off. I want them to see all my lovely locks here.
You teased your hair up. Yeah, you want that to be. Yeah. So Brian and Omar from Apple were there. I know that blew you away out of your chair, Jerry.
Yeah, that was great.
And they were there also to support, was it Kelly, who I don't think I had not met from Apple. I didn't catch her last name, but she's at training, right? At Apple, trainer. Like does a lot of the training. Yeah.
Yeah.
She gave a great presentation about, you probably can't say some of this publicly, but it's about inefficiency analysis, basically how to look at your clients and say, I can see your workflows here could use some room for improvement, and how to actually analyze it and communicate to them what those options are. Because we do that intuitively. It's, hey, I'm here fixing the printer. I just noticed that you keep sitting down over here, pressing a button, getting up, walking over there, taking the printout and walking it across this thing and handing it to that guy. And that guy does something. And then you go back to his desk, pick it. You can sometimes see that and just be like, that looks inefficient. You actually analyze that and use the terms that help communicate that to clients appropriately. Yeah. And then also see room for, of course, buying Apple products to make things more efficient. But as I joked in the ACES Slack, inefficiency analysis is what we do every week with our own businesses. We're talking about all the times we could have saved ourselves some effort, and we're analyzing each other's inefficiency. But it was great to have Kelly from Apple give us a real talk about that in a formal training. So that was great.
Yeah, and it caused people to interact with each other once again. So that was good.
Did Apple have any swag? Free Apple swag?
No, but getting those people, that team to the conference is a big feat. And I think that was,
sure.
That was exactly. That was key to a lot of people. A lot of people were happy to see them there. And I like that group a lot too. They're fun people.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. It's nice to be perceived as a valued arm or extension of this large corporation. And sometimes we feel a little relegated. And so to get validation like that, it's nice. It was in their budget to endorse not only all the ASEANs attending, but also ACES conference. So that was very nice.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. Again, kudos to Justin for running the ACES conference for 10 years now, 10 whole ACES under the belt. And yeah, having Apple there, it's a great, badge of honor, and shows that they really do care about the ACN as well. And they support us. So it's great to have that. Very valuable content. Sam got to hear all about one of my local clients that he can now go try to poach, because that was part of the training, was to role play client versus consultant. And then there was an observer. So groups of 3, the observer would feedback what they were noticing about the interaction. I didn't have to share those details, but I chose to share those details, and
they're on my list already.
Consultant win. Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun though. Nice. Well, we're wrapping up the ACES debrief. Do we have anything else you guys any other questions, Jerry, about ACES, or can you commit right now that you'll be there next year after hearing about this year?
It all depends on the location.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, we'll see where it shows up.
If we're east of the Mississippi, I'm definitely in. Chicago. Right. Yeah.
It's your vote. Nice.
I love Chicago.
Awesome. Yeah.
Now, Chicago is probably a very difficult place. It's a destination. It's very expensive. So it probably won't be in Chicago. But this time, if it's east of the Mississippi, I'm going to try to be there.
Gary, look for the survey Roy's mentioning in the chat was the next location announced. I remember from last year or prior years, Justin will send out a survey post ACES, teasing some ideas potentially of the locations, or just asking people to vote for where they want to go. So yeah, look out for that, listeners.
I go to Austin.
Austin was a good one. You were there in Austin, right?
I'll go back there.
Yeah, yep. Me too. Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
That was a great one.
So there was I want to ask, there was a big vendor turnout. Of course, Adigy was there. Who else had tables, and anything to mention there?
It's a great question. Yeah. I actually was really impressed with Adigy's presentation, also by Waples, actually, because he's focused on his security and compliance feature that I'm a little bit behind on, and how easy it is to basically, even Justin said, a few people chimed in saying, basically just check this box and bill your clients for it. It's not quite that simple, but effectively you have this whole new area in Adigy where you can add a lot of value to your clients, whether with or without remediations, but just to be able to snapshot the level of compliance and sell that as a value add, sell that as a feature to say, we can monitor for this, or we can maintain this. So I thought that one was great.
I will say that was one of Justin's requirements for the sponsors, which was great. It was basically don't sell your stuff. We're not looking for that. Tell us how we can better our businesses by perhaps using something there, but just don't give us a sales pitch. And that's what Adigy did, Jamf did, Boss Up was up on stage too. Basically just showing us, yes, we do these things. Of course, we're a company that's looking to sell services, but here's how you can really put it to use. And just giving examples and stories, which I think was incredibly helpful and very different than what you would typically see from a sponsor announcement up on stage. So that was key. I think that was great. But yeah, Jerry, to answer your question, obviously we talked about Adigy and Jamf were big ones there. Halo PSA, who I am currently signing up with, and
Nice.
LionGuard. But Halo, the big thing, and we can talk about this more on a show, especially if I sign up with them. They're Zendesk Plus. Like basically they do the ticketing stuff with Zendesk, but they're also handling a lot of the other components that I need to automate in my business more. So I really am pushing to get that moving fast. And then LionGuard, actually, Joe, I don't know if you saw their booth, but I was really intrigued by LionGuard. Basically a single pane of glass for many different services like Synology, Microsoft, Google, Datto, like all the pieces that I'm using. I can bring them into a single pane and see the status of my client there. I was like, oh my God, I have to have this.
Yeah.
So I have a demo scheduled with them next week.
Was there any, would that be any overlap with some of the technologies that you're using now?
Not really.
Or LionGuard is just an aggregator of different.
It's taking those different pieces and bringing them into one space. And I haven't seen the demo yet, and Wi-Fi was a little spotty. That was one thing. But when in the demo that I'm hoping to see is where you basically connect the dots on the back end and you say, go to client X and here's the status of their different services, whether it's Synology, Microsoft, or whatever. And I'm like, that would be amazing.
Yeah. Right. Not to put a bad twist on this. A lot of times with a lot of these things, they're really juicy and they really seem great. And they're like, oh, we got a 25. The buy-in is too high for smaller potatoes like Jerry.
I love when Jerry talks on the third.
I'm out. I've got to have, if I could put 5, 10 clients, I'm okay, sure. There's no setup charge.
I don't think it's that big of a requirement, but I can't, don't quote me on that, of course. When I do my demo, I'll spill the beans to you when I check it out.
Okay. I was impressed with LionGuard too. I did see their booth, and the number of like vendors that I recognized in the background of their like signage there. I just like you're saying, it's like I'm like, I use that. So yeah, it just seemed like they were very well integrated with a lot of things.
What about Mac HelpMate Dolly Drive? Were they one of the vendors?
We need to have the Mac HelpMate drinking game. Actually, somebody mentioned at one point, Alan yelled out during the conference, everybody drink, because I think somebody mentioned either Dolly Drive or Watchman monitoring or something. It's like, throwback to
me. I was talking about it on stage.
Yeah. That's right. Yes. Right.
And Alan came from the back.
Drink. Yeah. That was the other funny thing about your presentation, Sam, is you kept crediting people with, I learned this from this person, and they were not in the room, and you're just yelling for them. You're like, Chad, like whoever, I forgot who you're yelling for.
I made him get off a conference call because Chad Swarthout from Electrona was there, and I was making an Electrona patch, and he's not even there. Right. And where the hell are you? And someone ran and got him, and he came over back to the conference. I was like, the least you could do is give me a little respect, be here for my presentation.
Exactly. That's hilarious. Even Alan at the beginning, because you credited Watchman monitoring with those early quote support contracts. Yeah, it was funny. No one was in the room that you were mentioning. It was a full room, but it was specific people were all
wording
missing.
There, Joe. It's not that no one was in the room.
No, like it was like 4 out of 4 people that you mentioned were not there, and every other person was there. Yeah, no, that was great. Yeah, LionGuard is very interesting. They're also based in Denver, and when I got off my flight and I was taking the escalator up from the shuttle or whatever, and I saw a LionGuard sticker in the escalator. I'm pretty sure it was a lion, and I'm pretty sure it was their logo. So yeah, I'm not sure if that was like post-conference swag that somebody slapped up there, but yeah, they seem like a good. And Halo impressed me too. And like you said, the presentations about these vendors were also useful. I learned something about how I could use Halo. BossUp was very interesting because they work with smaller organizations than EOS. And so they do that kind of same style. And so I thought it was a great cross section of vendors just to have a lot of the names we already know there and some new ones. And look at you signing up for several of them already, Sam. That's a pretty, let's good feedback for Justin. Like he got some.
Let's call it as it is, Joe. He's promiscuous with technology and signing up for new services.
that was what his whole presentation was about. So it's true.
Yeah, pretty much. He hasn't stopped. He's continuing on his journey. Yeah.
Like we need to have an intervention here, Sam. That's right. Yeah, exactly. Bring that full circle. Nice. Richard in the chat, just as a final thing here, says LionGuard stores logs for 18 months. That's another Richard Russell. Yeah.
I think Richard was at ACES too, actually.
That's right.
That's good
How's
to
it
know.
going?
That's important. That's a long lead time that you have to go back to on occasions. I've seen where somewhere it's 6 months and then you're screwed if you need anything longer.
Yeah, or less, exactly. So yeah, very useful. It was great. A few people I hadn't had on my list, but came up naturally as part of our conversation. I'm sure there's still a few missing. So remind me if we hung out, and it was really fun just getting together with everybody. What a great time. Highly recommend it. ACES 2025. Everybody rally for your hometown and look for that announcement from Justin. And thanks again to Justin Esgar, host of ACES Conference. Congratulations on 10 years in a row. I had a great time. And the next time I hope to see you there too, Jerry. And it'll be fun to get together as a group.
Yeah, you guys could kick in some money for my fare and I'll get that.
All right. You pay for my fare. Y'all pay for your fare.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Great talking to you guys. Till next time.
Of customers of all kinds.
Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins his deeply detailed yarns all the time.
I have a whole story about this.
Sam is on the road again, phoning in from a hotel.
At least we know where I am.
Half a century combined of Apple expertise right now. Right now. My Mac is slow. Have you tried restarting? Well, the fans won't blow. Have you tried restarting? But my data is gone. Have you tried restarting? I dropped it